All right, greetings everybody, and welcome to another presentation of Desert Waters Staff Strong Series. I'm Justin Stevens, Desert Waters COO, and I will be presenting today's Staff Strong product overview together with Katerina Spinaris, Desert Waters Executive Director and Founder. Our monthly Staff Strong series presents some of the products we developed to support corrections agencies in advancing staff wellness. One way we do this is by equipping agencies with educational materials that are correction specific, relevant, and evidence informed. Materials for other public safety organizations are also available. Today's presentation features our proprietary 40-hour course entitled Peer Supporter Training. This presentation will be recorded and the video will be posted on Desert Water's YouTube channel in about a week. So we can get to know you guys a little bit better. If you could enter in the chat where you're from and the agency you're with, if you're comfortable doing so, we'd appreciate it. And also, please enter any questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll aim to answer them as time allows. Today's topics we're going to cover, we're going to give you a little bit about who we are. We're going to look at the PST learning objectives, rethinking how peer supporter teams are trained, the PST training details, what sets Desert Waters PST apart. You're going to meet our master instructors, and then a question and answer at the end. So who we are, we're a 501c3 nonprofit with 22 plus years. We aim to help public safety staff, families, and agencies. Our focus is on corrections and has been on corrections for the 22 years. And like I said, we have been looking at helping other public safety organizations as well, being that we go through a lot of the same stressors and traumas. We offer wellness training and have a variety of courses. We do research on and find data on the for agencies and look at the trends and what people are going through in our field. We have the Safe Haven Wellness Program, which is where we come alongside the agency and help build a wellness program that supports the staff and can be self-sustaining. The Safety Net Accreditation Program, where we look at accrediting an institution based off of their wellness program and that they meet the 18 standards that were set in the Safety Net accreditation. We also have educational materials. We have books in the shop online, and we also offer support both for families and staff. Looking at today's learning objectives, the peer supporter training goals guide agencies in establishing effective, well-managed peer support teams that address training, supervision, boundaries, and liability. Prepare peer supporters to provide ethical, professional support while maintaining clear boundaries and receiving ongoing training, supervision, and care.
Thank
And with,
you. Sorry.
I was going to hand it over to you, but Katerina, take it away.
Thank you, Justin. So welcome, everybody. It's so good to have you join us on this Thursday afternoon. And this is a course that is really near and dear to my heart because literally lives can be affected and may depend on how peer support is handled. So we've put a ton of thinking and revisions into this material. And it's really the last course we rolled out officially because it's a very high liability product. Operation service, whatever you want to call peer support, it's a very complex, many moving parts. So we wanted to look at how peer support teams are trained, and we had feedback from across the country, and we realized that there were some areas to add to and make a little more in depth, or very much more in depth. So if we go to the next slide, we looked at things to target specifically, like teaching on what is formal peer support versus informal peer support. What are absolutely necessary policies and best practices to follow in this area? Because otherwise, it's like running a whole program with no answers and no regulations about if something goes south or something is complex, how is it handled? So it needs to be proactively set up with policies. And the whole issue of privacy, confidentiality, and privileged communication is a big one. But there are many other areas like professional boundaries. How do you select peer supporters? How do you remove somebody from the team as a peer supporter? When people need breaks, the whole issue of training, the depth of training that is needed, refresher training, additional training. What kind of things can become really complicated with training? And then how do you manage the team and the people's reactions to offering peer support, them being affected, and the whole thing of liability regarding situations falling through the cracks, dealing with somebody who is suicidal or homicidal, um, people getting inappropriately involved as a result of getting really emotionally close during a peer support uh, encounter. All those things are hot potatoes and complex because human beings are complex. So we wanted to target those things. And also, going to the next slide, go much more in depth in terms of practicing active listening skills, not talking about them, but really only, but practicing them and having them both live practice and also like written exercises to assess comprehension. And then what do you do with somebody who wants peer support and they want you to fix it for them? They want you to do something um, to help them find a solution, and there is that pressure, and the human beings like to give advice and they like to fix things, and so it's a pretty difficult thing to hold back and not trying to be the advice giver in a situation, a problem solver, but help people reach what they need to reach on their own with your assistance as a facilitator, so to speak. And dealing with very high stress and complex situations like people having issues with supervisors or each other, coworkers. And then we talked about the potentially suicidal and homicidal staff. And this, believe me, I'm sure you know, is not rare. It's not rare at all. I wish it was. And overall, the thing that I didn't say yet is that we felt that we need to have peer support that goes in depth in one-on-one encounters, not only have a crisis response situation. We believe that trainings like CISM are very, very, very good for group um, debriefs and interventions. Our material is more about one-on-one for any life issue, not just a traumatic event, but any life issue, because for one thing, many life issues can happen over and over and over again. A traumatic event may happen much more sparsely. I mean, some places they do happen daily, but usually they don't. And so real life, though, keeps happening. Like people have health issues, they have relational issues, they have financial issues, they have interpersonal conflict, um, all kinds of things. And they may want to talk to a peer supporter because it's affecting their functioning and they are looking for some relief. So our material is not designed for critical incident response, although it equips people to be very, very good listeners and uh, assist people through emotional um, processing, maybe about a traumatic event, but it's for any issue in their lives. And we know there are several teams across the country that's what they do. They do not offer peer support limited to critical incidents. Other places do have it limited. And I think that we need to be able to address the whole umbrella of issues. And so, going to the training details, we have a lot of training, and it's a 40-hour training. Let's go to the next slide. Logistics wise, it's a 40-hour instructor training. We can do it in person or online, live, For people who pass, get a 3-year certification that can be renewable through exams. And this is for direct peer support, for people to learn to deliver peer support. And in addition to training individuals who come alongside the agency with consultation is part of the package, so to speak. Let's go to the next slide. Part of the package is the assisting them in how they select peer supporters, because that's what's going to make or break the team and the product of what is offered. The service is like who the peer supporters are. And then how do they implement it? How do they roll out a peer support team? What kind of parameters do they have? Is it available for all shifts in an institution, for example? Is it available for everybody and not just custody staff? Is it available, yes or no, to adult family members? Is it available to retirees? These are all questions to be asked and determined through and build the policies on. We can review policy, we could write policy for an agency if need be. And then the whole issue of what they should have as a periodic training, additional, because they cannot cram everything in 1 week in their mind. And also people need additional training, like refreshers for active listening skills, problem solving situations, more in depth in certain areas than what they got during that week. Discussing tricky cases, difficult situations that people run into, the whole issue of supervision. We strongly recommend having both clinical supervision and also operational supervision. Somebody running the team and then having a clinician discuss periodically how people handle situations, be available for advice, be available if something becomes very serious, like somebody needs to be admitted to a hospital. Having a clinician that ultimately oversees and takes over if need be, because we're dealing with high stress, high complexity situations. And we have 7 modules for the training, the initial peer support training, which is the next slide. And we have starting with the foundations, what peer support is, the do's and do nots of peer support and why. Then the whole thing of policies. It's a pretty lengthy PowerPoint for policies, best practices, and the recommendations. It has everything from operational details to the whole thing of confidentiality and liability issues, professional boundaries, like I said, how to remove a person from the team, the agreement that needs to be signed for somebody to, ethically to be on the team. Then you have 5 milestones of peer support. That's another lengthy teaching on 5 phases of peer support from the very beginning to the end. And so it's not just an encounter. It's like, what do you do after the meeting, if need be? Then some information on mental health statistics for correctional staff, some information on common mental health conditions like PTSD, major depression, and can we go back? Yeah. Then the whole issue of dealing with a very detailed teaching on dealing with somebody who's suicidal. Or you suspect they may be suicidal, and why you suspect that, and how to handle the situation so we don't just say, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, and freezing and ending up with have a nice day and something awful may happen. And of course, the homicidal issue is part of it. And then care for peer supporters, both self-care and also organizationally. The organizational needs to take care of the people that are really in the front line and absorbing anguish, anxiety, anger, whatever from the person they're listening to. So these are our modules. And now we can go to the next slide. So what sets it apart from other trainings according to several people who have seen other trainings? First of all, it's very correction specific. Our examples, our role plays, we have like dozens of role plays and scenarios that are very much corrections based, both at work and at home scenarios. We go beyond the critical incident about any issue, I mean, somebody's pet may have died, and they may need comfort. The 5 phases, so it's from beginning to end. It's not just, oh, listen here for a while. The training modules being very, very thorough. The whole thing of policies that are needed and why, to reduce agency liability, to increase the effectiveness of the services, because a lot of times staff will never go to a mental health provider, but they will go to a peer. So it's a big responsibility to be able to be very professional in the way one responds. The extensive practice of active listening skills, because they're easy to read about, but they're not easy to do. They are not easy to do. It takes a lot of concerted effort and practice to respond a certain way, like a reflection versus something else. And then dealing with how do you to respond to somebody who's pressing the peer supporter to help them fix something, like what do I do, what should I do, how to handle that one without putting them off and make them feel rejected, when they basically cannot tell them what to do, how to handle that and how to help them navigate their own path around figuring out their next steps. So these are some of our unique aspects. Let's go to the next slide, please. Then we have a bunch, like I said, dozens of scenarios that the class sits down and discusses, like how should we handle that and why? And can be all the way from somebody talks about somebody you know and they're bad mouthing them, and you have to stay professional and neutral, to getting at being attracted to the person who's being vulnerable with you and feeling the pull to cross a line of going home with them after the meeting, to a bunch of other scenarios. And then role plays that are different scenarios, are not the same, to practice skills under supervision. So we give people feedback, the whole class gives people feedback, and learn that way together. And it's about difficult situations that are going to occur. And like, trust me, I'm sure you know that too. If it will pop up somewhere, it will happen. The whole thing of homicide and suicide. Then we have a knowledge test for policies and written exercises for active listening skills. And the whole thing of team management. What do you do if you have somebody who's not playing by the rules, or are in the gray zone, or you can see that somebody is really deeply affected by something and they're not operating up to par, they need a break, how to handle that one, or two people on the team fighting, or getting involved together and losing objectivity for in some areas. And then the whole thing of training, if people feel like, for example, that they don't need training, that they know it all already, how do you keep people engaged with training and adding to their toolbox effectively? And there are several other training challenges to overcome. So we kind of delve into that. And I'm sure that as we keep teaching it, we'll be tweaking the material and adding, subtracting, altering, because new things come up. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a good point. Let's allow for that, or add it here, or modify this other thing there. Because it's like a living document, based on experience as well as theory. So let's go to the next slide. So then we have built something that we would need to use very and implement very carefully, which is an instructor training for peer support. For that one, we wanted to be a 80-hour course where people first take the regular peer supporter training and ideally go out there and practice peer support for a few months, and then come back and do the peer supported training for instructors. And that's a much more in-depth and higher responsibility training, because they have now to be able to give back feedback to peer supporters. They have to be able to make sure people develop those skills. And it's one would have to be very, very careful with how they select candidates for being instructors of peer support. and the standards are much higher for that because of the responsibility and the complexity. So let's see, do we have? So I think that's the my part for what this is about. I just want to say that the culture of a facility will affect how well peer support is used, and also the culture will be affected by good peer support. If peer support is good and people know it's confidential and nobody leaks information, so you don't have to remove somebody from the team for leaking information, then people will use it more, and there'll be a sense of trust and psychological safety. And so it's a very, very important part of shaping the culture. If it's done properly, it's going to be very advantageous. And back to you, Justin.
All right, thank you, Katerina. So, real quick, our master instructors, and this is just the master instructors we have on board at Desert Waters. Um, I think we totaled up about 150 years of correctional experience through everybody, um, with ranging from state systems, uh, federal systems, everywhere in between. A great team with a lot of knowledge. And with that, I'd like to open it up to any questions that people may have about PST or about Desert Waters. You can put it in the chat. In
And we okay cost. I believe next year. I think it's for the week long peer support training. I believe it's. I have to look it up if it is 1695 or 1795. I think it's
17,
1795.
1795.
Right. And it's for a 3-year certification. And again, remember all the consultation with the agency coming alongside, because we want you to succeed. We want a good job to be done, people to be truly helped, and nobody to be injured. Because it's better to not do it at all if rather than doing it poorly and having people get hurt. And having, for example, a leak of information that will cause basically essentially the program to shut down. People won't trust it, won't use it anymore. And you can go to our website under trainings, desertwaters.com under trainings, and you special teams, and you'll get more information there.
And looking at the chat, that the 1795 is per participant. Um,
Right.
the training, uh, depending on how many people um, in the area to be trained, uh, we can come out and do an in-person training. What's the number on that, Katerina? 10?
10, yeah, and plus
Yeah.
the travel expenses for 2 master instructors. If we have more than 10, we have probably 3 master instructors.
Or if we don't reach that number, and we can get other people from around the country or around, we would be able to do a Zoom training, but in person is definitely uh, better, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. And 10 minimum. And sometimes it's different agencies pulling their, like 4 from here, 6 from there, pulling their staff together. But a lot needs to be thought about, like how big of a team do you need? And we can assist with that too, depending on how big of a department you are or facility. And we don't have registrations just of single individuals for this class. We need to have a team from an agency, because one is not going to be a peer supporter all by themselves. They need to be able to have a team initiated and by their agency. But definitely, it's something that law enforcement finds to be very helpful. Um, for years now, decades, they have used it, and corrections is using it more and more. um, it can be a lifesaver. Done properly, it can be a lifesaver. So it's a big initiative, it's a big commitment. Like I said, it's a huge liability for the department. So it's very much worth investing to do it as carefully and wisely as possible.
All right. With no more questions coming in the chat, I'd like to thank you for attending today. Reminder, our next webinar is November 20th at 1 Eastern, covering Norway. And then December 11th is our next Staff Strong, and we'll be covering the True Grit course. Hope you guys stay safe and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.